Lofgren, in your remarks, you mentioned something that's very obvious, and that is that a patchwork of state-level laws negatively impacts what you're able to do, and that's one of the reasons way back when the National Highway System started. We wanted uniformity, particularly not just truckers, but everyone going across a country. Now, I was here in 1994 when we established the federal standards for prices, routes, and services of motor carriers. Then along comes California, and they established a state meal and rest break requirements that are in violation of this law. But in 2014, the Ninth Circuit said, no, it's not in violation. So I would ask you, what kind of impact is this having on your business?
Well, I think as it relates to interstate commerce, which we're involved in, we can have a driver who starts in one state, travels across multiple states, and will finish his day or her day in another state. And as these things start to creep up, with all of the best of intentions, you can find yourself violating one or the other because they don't take into account how a driver works through their day. And that's the challenge, and that was really what was driving the legislation back in 1994, was a recognition that interstate commerce had people moving, and it was the ability to freely move around this country to transport goods was giving us a competitive advantage. And so the challenge is that they don't recognize the very work that's being done and how they impact, and essentially can create discontinuities in terms of doing that and operating consistent with the regulations.
Yeah, and I imagine you agreed with me that you were probably somewhat surprised in 2014 when the Ninth Circuit came out with their ruling on this.
Well, I think, look, when you operate within a state, and we have some of our drivers who operate within just one state or frankly one municipality, and in those circumstances we can certainly design the work, design the pay programs, and ensure compliance to that and serve customers. And so the issue isn't one where it's operating within a state. It is absolutely around interstate commerce, and so that's the part that I guess seems strange to me.
It's a little strange, yeah. And Mr. Rose, first of all, thank you for all your help and cooperation in our Tinker efforts. You've been a big, big help. The BNSF is part of the FAA's Pathfinder program to perform research aimed at expanding the drone system in their capabilities. This is something that I successfully pushed in the FAA bill when we had the language, and I was actually aiming at pipelines, an obvious exception that should have been made. Now, do you want to share with us any kind of benefits that you see in that expansion?
Sure. So we're pleased that we have a partnership with the FAA, and we were the first company to get non-line of sight, which is really opens up a whole different world for us. We're using it in some cases out in New Mexico to fly drones ahead of trains. We're using it to take videos of track conditions. We're using it to inspect bridges instead of having to hang an individual in a very precarious situation over a bridge to look at the structural ability of a bridge. So I think we're just in the first inning of seeing everything that is out there for us with drones. We're working with IBM in terms of looking at big data. We're getting just millions of pieces of information coming from these drones, and now creating the information set that will allow us to, quite frankly, to improve our operation reliability and improve our safety greatly.
Yeah, I was going to say, every example you used, it's a matter of safety that it addresses,
right?
Not just efficiencies.
Correct. Safety.
That's good. The chair, when she opened up, was talking about our bill that we passed, the FAST Act, and the fact that we had, for the first time, a national freight program. Now, I was chairing that committee at that time. And the reason that she's bringing it up, and the reason I want to bring it up also, is because we're going to be starting to work right away on the next one. And since this is the first time we had a national freight program, I just want to get into the record that it's something that is really desired, something that's helpful. Any comments, Mr. Rhodes or anyone else that you have on that program?
No, again,
Other than what you've already responded to, the Chair.
we're very, very supportive.
Good.
I served on the last time the surface transportation network in this country was studied through the TLU legislation back in 2009, and we looked at what happens at that time. Our population in this country, we had 312 million people. We actually modeled the highway network, the port network, and the railroad network when we get to 330 million people, when we get to 350 million people. And the only way to stay up and remain our competitiveness from a infrastructure supply chain as a percent of GDP is, quite frankly, to handle this freight. And freight is a vital link to our nation's economy. And so I think really for the first time through the FAST Act, we've actually seen a freight program. It's not fully fleshed out. The bones, I would call it, it has good bones to be able to build on like you're talking about. And we want to participate in terms specifically for things like intermodal connection, freight collection areas, overpasses, underpasses, grade crossing safety, which I know Senator Gardner is very, very interested in, rail relocation, port enhancements, all these things that at the end of the day make freight move more efficiently. Because when freight doesn't move efficiently, you get massive congestion costs, massive congestion of commuters on the nation's highways.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.